እንግዲህ ኢትዮጵያዊነት እድሜ ጾታ ልጅነት ወይ አውቂነት ብቻ ሁሉም ኢትዮጵያዊ ለኢትዮጵያ ይገባገባል። ልደት እዚህ ጋር እባክሽን ወረቀቱን ይዘሽ ነይ። ሰዎቹ እየመጡ ስለሆነ ደብዳቤውን ይዘሽ ነይ ፕሊዝ። ልደት እናመሰግናለን። እስከዛ እኚህ እናት እንቅልፍ አጥተው በኢትዮጵያዊነታቸው ተንገብግበው ጀግና የጀግና እናት ይኸው መልእክታቸውን ያስተላልፋሉ ባጭሩ።
በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሜን። ባዶ አምላክ የኢትዮጵያ ልጆች እንደምን ናችሁ? ደህና ናችሁ? አራተኛ ብርጌዶች ጦር ሰራዊቶቹ ልጅ አልወለዱም እንዴ? የኡጋዴን አንበሳ ልጅ አልወለደም እንዴ? አልወለደም። የት አላችሁ? የሚሊሻው ልጅ የጦር ሰራዊቱ የነበልባል ልጅ ሊጠፋ መሳቱ አሉ እኮ ተነሶ ዘራፍ በጥፍጥፍ እንደ በለሴ ዘራፍ ሞትም አይፈራ እንደ ስላሴ ቆላ ተኩሶ ደጋ የሚመታ እንደ ማታቀስ አራተኛ ብርጌድ የአንበሳው ጦር ወንድ ባዴን ጦር የት ሄደ? የት ሄደ? ልጅ አልወለደም። የኮንጎው ጀግና እሳት ራቱ አራተኛ ብርጌድ ነበር በስራቱ። አንበሳው ጦር የት ሄደ? ልጅም አልወለደ። ልጅም አልወለደ። የት አሉ ልጆቹ? ተተኳሾቹ አሉ በልዩ መሀል አገዳ የሚለያዩ ዘራፍ።
እናመሰግናለን። እዚህ ጋር እንዴት ነው? ኦኬ እሺ የታለ ያገርሰው
I'm
እዚህ ደግሞ መልእክት የሚያስተላልፉ ኤርትራ በእናታችሁ ከዚህ ጋር ፕሊዝ እኔ በማንም መታችሁ ስለጠይቅ ፕሮግራም የተጻፈ ፕሮግራም ነው የሚሰራ በግል እና መልእክት የሚያስተላልፉ ሰዎች አሉ። ኦኬ እሺ፣ እዚህ ጋር በእንግሊዝኛ ሜሴጅ ኤርትራዊ ወንድማችን ያስተላልፋሉ። አንድ ጊዜ በትዕግስት Ethiopians
ያለውን ጠንካራ ስቴት ዲፓርትመንት ፊት ለፊት ተሰብስባችሁ ሜሴጃችሁን ለማድረስ ለመጣችሁ አዘጋጆቹ በኤርትራውያኖች የኮሚኒቲው በእንግሊዝኛ የተጻፈ ስቴትመንት ተዘጋጅቷል። እሱን እንዳለበት ተጠየቁ። በደስታ ተዘጋጅቼ ይህን ሜሴጅ ለማድረግ ተዘጋጅቻለሁ። ያንን ከማድረግ በፊት ግን አንድ ነገር ለሁላችን ማስታወሻና ለማስታወቅ ይገባል። እዚህ የመጣነው የባይደን አድሚኒስትሬሽንን ለመቃወም ነው። አሜሪካንን አይደለም። አሜሪካ የእናታችን እንደ ሀገር እንደ ሁለተኛ እንደ ሶስተኛ እናታችን የምንመለከታት ሀገር መሆኑን ሁላችንም ማወቅ አለበት። We have to understand, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to say this in English. Our message has to be clear and concise. The past 30 years, our enemy was a particular party, the Democratic Party. Ethiopian, Eritrean, ወደኋላ የጎተተ administration ቢኖር Clinton, Obama, now Biden. So let's make sure that we're not missing our target here, guys. And the common denominator of those three administrations is Susan Rice. Okay? So
ሰላም ነው። እንደታየው ዛሬ ሰልፍ በጣም አሪፍ ነው። በጣም ኢትዮጵያ ናስ ኤክስፔክት የስ
Okay, Ethiopians and Eritreans, this is a historic day. For the first time, and in this number, we Eritreans and Ethiopians are raising our voices in defense of our countries and in assertion of our peace and friendship, which is an integral part of the cooperative Horn of Africa with Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, and Djibouti. We are gathered today to express our deep dismay at the injustice that's being perpetrated by the Biden administration on the Eritrean and Ethiopian peoples. All the lies and fabrications they are spreading, and the ill-considered measures they are pursuing. The TPLF plans to drive into war with the aim of overthrowing the government of Ethiopia as well as the Eritrean government. Ethiopia has the right and duty to defend its territory and legal order. Yet the U.S. accuses unequivocally acknowledge the TPLF strategy and deliberately suitable its crime under the law. Inexplicably, the U.S. government blames Ethiopia, scapegoats Eritrea, and seeks to pressure and intimidate those countries. And Ethiopia is supposed to be America's oldest regional ally. We deplore this harmful travesty. Our message to the U.S. administration is short and simple. Please, answer. We are capable of running our own affairs. You cannot be more concerned about ourselves than us. Truth be told, the measures you are taking are not intended to help us. Remember, we, Eritrean and Ethiopia, made peace ourselves. Why are you trying to drive a wedge between us? Why are you fanning a conflict between Ethiopia and Sudan? Why are you supposed to Horn of Africa cooperation? Would it be better served your interests to work with peaceful and friendly with each other, Ethiopia and Eritrea, Eritrea and Ethiopia, well as peacefully, stable, cooperative Horn of Africa. That's a question mark, and I'm sorry for my reading here. Apparently not your preference. For control and domination, Trump benefits of advancing mutual long-term interest. No wonder the U.S. is losing ground in Africa. Remember, one thing we have to understand is that our enemies also have their own target. That's the enemy they ended up fighting by having the worst policy in East Africa. So we cannot be responsible for that. It's only the administration. I'm sorry. It's the administration's fault. It's not Ethiopians and Eritreans governments for that matter. The final reminder is in order. Successive U.S. administration supports the TPLF, turning a blind eye to its wars and crimes at the expense of the people of Tigray, of home in Ethiopia, at the expense of Eritrea and Somalia. If that was a great mistake, even then, what can we make of current U.S. efforts to send and bring back the people to Vietnam? Unless the intention is to prolong conflict and suffering. Finally, a word to U.S. Eritreans, Ethiopians, Horn of Africans in the U.S., many of the citizens. Our numbers are significant. Our political organization, economic, social, and cultural capability multiple our numbers manifold. Let's unleash our potential. We will make valuable contribution to our nations, our region. Our voices and interests will be difficult to ignore the United States. This is the message from the community, and I understand and I was told that the State Department reps are showing up, they're coming here. So I would be happy to extend this conversation. I'll be happy to extend this message to the people. And because
ከባዱ እንግዶቹ መጥተዋል፣ ተቀበሏቸው። እስከዛ እኛ ከዚህ ጋር ሜሴጅ እናስተላልፋለን። ድምፃችሁን አሰሙላችሁ።
The website here to accept our message, and first and foremost, we do appreciate their coming here and to listen to our
Ethiopian government has done everything to comply to international demand. What more is expected? Give me dignity or give me poverty. Ethiopian government took law enforcement action and saved the country. HOA, TPLF does not represent the people of Tigray. Biden administration, do not try to rescue this TPLF terrorist group. TPLF is a terrorist group. Do not believe us. Check your own list. USA, Biden administration, support Ethiopia. In its fight against extremism and terrorists. It's my job, and I am finished.
Next, I would like to introduce you a hero of mine too, who has been working hard advocating for Ethiopia and Eritrea. Please welcome Mr. Naaman. Thank you very much. Please join us.
እሺ በመቀጠል የሚቀርብላችሁ ነአምንን መቼም የማያውቅ ካለ እንዴት ነው የኢትዮጵያን ጉዳይ ያልኖረ ማለት ነው። ነአምን ላለፉት 30 ዓመታት ደከመኝ ሰለቸኝ ሳይል በኢትዮጵያ ትግል በፀሐይ በብርድ ሲታይ ከለውጡም በኋላ የቲፒኤልኤፍ በማህበራዊ ሚዲያ የሚወስደውን የማጥቃት የውሸት ፕሮፓጋንዳ በመመልከት ኢትዮጵያውያኖችን በማስተባበር ከፍተኛውን ስራ እየሰራ ይገኛል። ሞቅ ያለ ጭብጨባ ለምናምን ማምን ወደ መድረክ።
እሺ፣ እንደምን አደራችሁ የተወደዳችሁ ኢትዮጵያውያን፣ እንዲሁም የኤርትራ ኮሚኒቲ ወንድሞቻችን እህቶቻችን እንኳን ደህና መጣችሁ። የሶስቱን ወንድምና የሰልፉን ዓላማ ለመግለጽ የኢትዮጵያን ያለውን ሁኔታ የአሜሪካንን መንግስት አቋም ነበር። እንዳይሰለቻችሁ ለሁለት ተከፍሎ በእንግሊዝኛ በንባብ ይቀርባል። በግማሽ ቆርጬዋለሁ ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ በጥሞና አዳምጡ። አመሰግናለሁ። We are gathered here today to be the voice of the Ethiopian people to protest the unfair and unjust position taken by the U.S. administration, as stated by the Secretary of State Antony Blinken just 2 weeks ago. Despite the enumerated facts regarding the genesis of the conflict in Tigray, the United States is taking an unfair and unjust policy towards the situation in Ethiopia's Tigray region. State Secretary Blinken's recent statement clearly backed us and attempts to put a moral equivalence between the federal government and the TPLF, a criminal terror group that ruled Tigray with impunity as it did Ethiopia for the past 27 years. To the credit of the previous Trump administration, on November 4, 2020, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemned the TPLF attack and declared, quote, "The United States stands with the people of Ethiopia and will work with all who are committed to peace, prosperity, democracy, and the rule of law," end of quote. On November 15, 2020, Assistant Secretary Ambassador Tiber Nagy strongly condemned the TPLF's unjustified attacks against Ethiopia and Eritrea on November 14 in TPLF's efforts to internationalize the conflict in Tigray. On December 1st, 2020, again, Ambassador Tiber Nagy in his BBC interview said, quote, "It is important to remember here there is no equivalency. You have a sovereign government and the region of Ethiopia, the leadership of which basically started a conflict against the government. The Tigrayan leadership," he continues, "wanted to use the opportunity basically to overthrow the Prime Minister and return to the type of privilege and undue power they enjoyed within the Ethiopian state for the last 27 years. Indeed, the former Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Ambassador Tiber Nagy, was apt, honest, and on point. The TPLF tried to remove the PM Abiy violently. That was their aim. That was their design. That what they planned and prepared for 2 years, raising over 200,000 militia and special forces within mere 2 years. These are the facts. Why the new administration trying to reverse the open admission of the previous U.S. administration officials. For 27 years, the U.S. supported the TPLF with billions in aid and currency. For 27 years, the U.S. supported the TPLF with billions in aid and turned a blind eye to their massacre, mass detentions, torture, and gross abuse of human rights, as documented extensively in the annual U.S. Human Rights Report. It should be highlighted that some of these U.S. officials today in key positions are well-known friends that supported and propped the TPLF criminal clique. We Ethiopian Americans and the Ethiopian communities across the USA have a message to President Biden's administration. Your current position on Ethiopia is ill-advised. We argue because it is not on the basis of a sober and well-rounded consideration and assessments of the facts about the situation in Tigray region. Furthermore, your position has not considered the unintended or intended consequences and ramifications of unleashing chaos and instability in Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa, thus posing a grave danger for peace, security, and stability in a precarious sub-region, the Horn of Africa, compounding the current tensions and low-intensity conflicts in the region. Furthermore, USA's policy emboldens the remnants of the TPLF criminal and terrorist clique, its diaspora wing that has got vowed, along with other extremists waiting in the wings, to weaken and destabilize Ethiopia. Beyond these reasons, the statement made by Secretary Blinken infringes on the sovereignty of Ethiopia, and we reject it. Ethiopia's sovereignty is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. But why is the new administration and similarly the European Union are putting such unjustified pressure on Ethiopian government? It is due to the following reasons. First, because of the global, well-organized misinformation and deception of the TPLF diaspora information machinery. Number two, lobbyists and paid for by former TPLF ambassador in the USA. He is now in Maryland. And the likes of TPLF tycoon who resides in Virginia and who has a long-standing relation with the successive U.S. administrations, in particular the State Department. Third, because of both the witting and unwitting collaboration of international media, which have reported false narratives, fake news, and grossly distorted coverage of how the conflict is developed. Fourth, Ethiopia's historic enemies who do not want us to develop, who want to thwart the just use of the waters of the Nile, and their allies have exploited the current situation in Ethiopia. US and EU are now witting accomplices for the onslaught against our beloved Ethiopia. We reject it, we don't accept it, we protest, we oppose it. Ethiopia that could potentially destabilize if this policy remains unchecked, unopposed, could potentially unleash hell orders and bring down the entire Horn of Africa. This, you should get it, Secretary Blinken. Currently, TPLF is all but a destroyed entity. Its efforts to resuscitate itself gets its energy from such ill-advised policy of the US administration and the European Union, who have taken, and others like some members in Africa, member nations of the United States and Africa. The international community's policy rather must be to reject TPLF criminal clique futile efforts to come back to resuscitate itself. Let us pause a moment and a question at this momentous occasion. Let us pose a question to President Biden and Secretary Anthony Blinken. Would they negotiate and see on equal moral standing with MAGA, those who took the U.S. Capitol on January 6th? No, they would not. No, they would not. Leave alone a criminal terror group which is responsible for gruesome, brutal, cruel massacre of thousands of civilian Ethiopians at Kadra, and thousands of ENDF Ethiopian soldiers massacred brutally in many places when they launch simultaneous attack against units of the Northern Command. We therefore would like to urge President Biden and Secretary Blinken, would they negotiate and see it on equal moral footing. We therefore would like to ask and urge Biden to desist from pursuing an unfair and unjust policy on Ethiopia. We also urge the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee members, the 7 senators, to rescind the draft resolution which similarly undermines Ethiopia's sovereignty and security and emboldens the remnants of the TPLF criminal and terror clique. What needs to be done by us, Ethiopian Americans, Eritrean Americans, friends of Ethiopia across the US? We must call on all our elected officials in each and every state. We urge friends of Ethiopia and the great people of this country, home of the brave and land of the free, to stand with Ethiopia, to stand with the truth. We also need to stand and support the efforts of the Ethiopian government to address and support the Tigrayan people with humanitarian aid. We must stand in defense of Ethiopia. We must do what it takes to reverse the global tide that weakens Ethiopia, that will destabilize Ethiopia, that will endanger our 110 million of our people. We must do it with all our might. TPLF, the victim of evil, and its allies are working 24/7. We need to work 48 hours. All Ethiopians and people of Ethiopian descent around the world, as well as friends of Ethiopia, Eritreans, civic groups, community organizations, academics, we must act to defend Ethiopia from the current assault and onslaught. The hundreds of thousands of Ethiopian Americans who vote in the US and the tens of thousands who pay our taxes must hold and engage members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. We have to express our grave concerns. We need to engage and urge them not to fall for and take positions and resolutions because of TPLF criminal global disinformation and pressure. We need to tell them the truth objectively with evidence. Who started the conflict? Who started and what? The TPLF did. The crimes, the heinous crimes it committed, and the current efforts of the federal government and the provisional administration in Tigray, and also international NGOs in addressing the humanitarian needs of our people in Tigray. We need to nip in the bud the avalanche of lies and false narratives by engaging on social media, in particular Twitter. Be active, have an account on Twitter. In the workplaces, in our schools, universities, and among African Americans and the good and noble citizens of this great country, it is our task, it's our duty, it is our mission to reach them, to reach out and contact media outlets and ask them to cover the truth and objectively instead of recycling the false and lies of the TPLF and its foreign allies. Ultimately, and at the end, it's our duty and responsibility during the very month of the great Adwa victory 125th anniversary celebration to stand united, to crush the sinister machination against Ethiopia and our people. We need to defend Ethiopia from hostile forces near and afar to secure our peace, to secure our unity, to secure our stability, and that yearning of the Ethiopian people for freedom, for democracy, for development. Defend we must for our people to see the light and Ethiopia to prevail. Finally, for some African countries, we say allowing injustice against Ethiopia today is exposing yourself in the world for injustice tomorrow. And during this time that pose an existential threat to Ethiopia, we should express our gratefulness to the brotherly people of Eritrea who are standing on the side of the Ethiopian people in these trying times. We shall never forget that the Eritrean people fed and clothed the thousands of ENDF soldiers who were stripped-necked and forced to trek across the border to Eritrea. We should also express our gratitude and thankfulness to the government of Russia, to the government of China and India for standing on the side of Ethiopia by opposing the extension of the misguided, unjust and dangerous US position at the United Nations Security Council. Ethiopia shall prevail. Ethiopia, unity for Ethiopia. Ethiopia shall overcome. Ethiopia forward with resilience. Thank you very much, my brothers and sisters.
አንድ ጊዜ ሁለት ደቂቃ እንትን እያደረግን ሞቅ አድርገን መንገድ ከመጀመራችን በፊት በኦሮምኛ አንድ መልእክት እዚህ ጋር እናስተላልፉና ሁለት ደቂቃ አሁን ሞቅ አድርገን አሜሪካኖች we are Ethiopian አስፋልት ላይ ሳንንደባለል በኩራት ሰንደቃችንን ከፍ አድርገን እንሄድበት ነው። ጅርቱ thank you እኛ ኑቲ ኢትዮጵያዳ ብየታ ከቀምና ኦሮሞን አማራን ትግሬን አዳን ኑምባስ ኑቲ ብየታ ኮረት ኢትዮጵያ ረት ኢነ ኢትዮጵያ ረት የሮቢያ ባን ኢትዮጵያ ጀነ ባን መሬ ወከን አማራ ጉራጌ ትግሬ ጀነ ቢያን ባን ሶ ኢትዮጵያን ተካ ዶክተር አብይ ጀነሪለ ረኮና ጅራቴስ ረኮጅሩ ፊርግነስ እንጀራ ከናፉ ሞቱማን ከሚዩ ረኮኒ ቀባ ረኮ ኢሳሞ ይኑ ኬሰት ፈላ አሜሪካን ስቴት ኩናዳን ብያ ኢማ ኢትዮጵያ ረት ሀርከ ጌሰን ገልችተኒ ኑን ጀግና አሜሪካዎች የተለያዩ ሀገሮች በኢትዮጵያ ጉዳይ ላይ ጣልቃችሁን አታስገቡብን ያልኩት ሌላ ነገር አይደለም። በሮኛ አብዛኞቻችን ኢትዮጵያ ዛሬም ትናንትም ያልተሸነፈች ሀገር ናት። ኢትዮጵያን ሀረስ በሩስ ከለሰስ ንጅራቲ ንቱርቲ ንጅራት ከላሁ ኢትዮጵያ ኢለሁለ ከኛቲ 13 ሰዓት መንገድ ነርቼ የመጣሁት የጎሳዬ ኢትዮጵያ የሚለው ጉዳይ አስፈልጋለሁ። ደብዳቤ አስገብተናል፣ ተቀብለው ገብተዋል። አሁን በቀጣይ ሞቅ እያደረግን ለማርች ዝግጅት እናደርጋለን።